Sound check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lots of good? No, you want more. Okay. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. Let's do the other one too. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2. Well, good morning and welcome. How wonderful to see this brilliant sun coming in here. It's nice, isn't it? So we come together to remember who we are, to practice being loving toward ourselves and to cultivate the ability to really be honest and true with ourselves and others. Such good fortune we have to be here together, and imagine a space this big that's warm. Quite remarkable. So, two options now. One is if you want to remain inward, that's fine. Another option is to turn to a neighbor and introduce yourself and tell them one thing for which you're very grateful this morning. We'll just take a minute to do this. A couple of minutes. Hey, hop along. What? What happened?
Broken right fifth metatarsal. Coming down off that step.
Here? At least it's work related. Yes, enlightened people never have accidents. Oh, the Buddha died of food poisoning. How do we put that together? So the refuges. Have you noticed how stunningly unstable life is?
Yeah.
Exhibit A will be entered into the record. Yeah. So where can we take refuge in a world in which everything is so tumultuous? And it's not like it's abnormal to be tumultuous, that's its nature. So to take refuge in the Buddha is one option, in the inspiration of the historical Buddha, but more fundamentally in that in us which is the Buddha, that which is awake. And then what we discover through the teachings, the Dharma, but then what the teachings point to, the direct experience of the way things actually are, is the Dharma. So that's a nice place. I take refuge in things as they are. There's so much less stress in that than I take refuge in the way things should be. Or if I'd only had the right parents, it would have been right, or something like that. We do lots of those. And then Sangha, to take refuge, we have our little local community, and it's helpful to be supportive here. But there's also the community of those of us who've come before us and who passed down these teachings. And then there's one more perspective on it that I like to open up, which is, at this moment, we're the cambium layer of life on the earth. And we share this moment of life with hundreds of billions of other creatures, from the tiniest single-celled organisms to the great whales. And that also is our Sangha, it's our community of life. And so I like to keep that in mind as we do these little chants. And please join in as it makes sense for you. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. And once again, reflecting on the meaning as we do it. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. gives me comfort, pleasure, to know that people have been doing that very chant, slightly different, like in Pali, or in lots of different languages, for more than 2,600 years. It's a long time. So I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Thank you to everyone who volunteers here at BIMC. These flowers so magically appear, and the doors are opened early so that you can come in, and people clean up, and it's really quite something how much generosity there is. It's what weaves us together. So, let's do that blessed undertaking of doing almost nothing. Let's stop and sit. Mindfulness. Becoming aware of what's happening inside us and around us in successive moments of consciousness. Anything could be happening in this mind at this moment. Could be a moment of great ease or a moment of great distress. It can help to start in the body where it makes contact with the floor or the cushion or the chair. Right here. To be here now. Notice what is the body in your direct experience? Its sensations. Go beneath or before any images or concepts of body and you find this. You can notice the life in the region of the universe you call your face. Your hands. And ever since that moment of your birth, this breathing has been happening. And the breathing the sensations of breathing in and breathing out can provide a very useful home base. Each breath has a beginning, and you can notice it doesn't exist, and then it comes into being. And it begins with the in-breath, and then it comes to fullness, and then it declines, and then it vanishes. Sometimes it's possible to open the field of view, to be aware of the entire body, with the breathing at the center of it. Other times it's difficult to find the breath at all. In that case, we notice what's going on, what other phenomena are happening, maybe liking or disliking, or restlessness, or sleepy dullness, or doubt, or some emotion. These are also worthy objects of noticing, so we can always just settle back into the present moment and notice how things are. one could say that the central essence of practice is the cultivation of mindfulness and concentration in a context of love. And in this case, defining love as there being room for everything that arises. People commonly say that mindfulness is non-judgmental. Mindfulness is like sunshine. It shines on everything when it shines. So whatever your experience is right now, see if you can make room for it. This moment is like this, so the mind is at ease or it's discomforted or restless. There's lots of mindfulness or there's not. There's liking or there's disliking. One thing for sure is that there is the breath coming and going, and it's always receptive of awareness. Meditation is the practice of being conscious in the present. And in fact, all there ever is now. If the mind's been wandering for a short time or a long time, it doesn't matter. That's what is right now. What shall I do with the next moment? Well, I can come home to the breath. I can be accepting of what is. All we ever have is this moment right now. And in it, the breath begins, has its lifetime, and then disappears. discomfort may arise in the body. And unless it's a signal of damage being done, it provides a great opportunity to observe discomfort, to observe the disliking, to observe any emotion that arises around it. One of the skills we learn in growing up is that not every emotion or bodily sensation has to be pursued or rejected. In meditation, we mature further. We learn to bear sensations that were previously unbearable. We really become mature adults and can accept more of the challenges of life without freaking out or resorting to some addiction or acting out. We do this through awareness and concentration and love and patience and many other mental factors that come along with it. Perhaps let's open awareness to the quiet in the room. What a pleasure to sit in a room full of other conscious persons, knowing the shared intent of waking up. And please now let's notice the experience of this moment and bring awareness into the contact with the floor or the cushion, the chair, into the eyes and the face. And observe the intention in the eyes. The intention of the mind regarding the eyes, to let the eyes open. And then operationalize that. Notice the effort that's required to raise the eyelids. Seeing begins. Seeing. This transition from formal sitting practice to whatever comes next is really important, because then whatever we do next, we can do with mindfulness. And over time, it dawns on us that meditation doesn't mean, or doesn't have to mean, something I do for a few minutes a day sitting on my cushion. Meditation is the way that we live life. Remembering often during the day, oh right, I'm driving, seeing. Oh, I'm about to make a phone call, how interesting. My attitude toward this person I'm calling is like this. So I'm going to ask maybe one person who noticed something during this sitting that you'd be willing to share. What happened during this time? Anybody brave? Please say your name too.
Hi, I'm Dave. I don't know how brave I am. As you talked about noticing the breath and how it doesn't actually exist until it starts, I focused on that and suddenly remembered sitting next to my mother as she was dying, and that concept was there then, and it's interesting.
Have to clean my glasses sometime today. It's getting bad.
Hi, my name is Vic, and what I really noticed was how there was the calming down that was happening as time went by. About 5 minutes in, I found out that I was actually holding on to my breath. It was very shallow, and there was a very perceptible moment where the breathing became deeper. It's almost like I gasped for breath and something opened up. And as it went further in, I could actually feel certain muscles in my shoulders and my neck and my forehead start kind of loosening up a little bit. Tension in my forearms starting to loosen up. And about 15 to 20 minutes or so, there was this feeling of openness that started up. And I think that was the most noticeable things.
Thank you. All righty. So I'm going to hand this over to you, Jim, if you'll do some mindful movement.
So we usually start with the foundation, feet in touch with the floor. But I also want to check out that pattern of light in the windows over there. Take a look at the stripes. There's light, and in the middle window, there's a stripe of light and then dark, and kind of something in between. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just a position I'm in. But at any rate, when we finish, glance over there, and you'll see that this is an impermanent world, and we'll change our position in regard to the sun. That's one of the remarkable things that I discovered when I started doing Tai Chi. We did standing meditation, and I'd see these patterns of light in the floor, and then the meditation would be over, and it's like, what happened? Impermanence. All right, so sinking, impermanence. We can't sink forever. It stops. And then we rise. So there's a beginning and an end to a gesture. And then there's a pathway from the beginning to the end. So there's a tension at the edge or the beginning, and there's a tension at the other edge, at the ending, and then there's how much attention is there to the journey between. We do that with the sensations in the legs, or adding the arms, and riding the breath. We can put 10 or 20% of our attention on the breath. It has a beginning. It has an ending for the inhale, and then a beginning of the exhale, and an ending. But in between, there's a journey. So we have this plastic quality of awareness. We can be aware of destinations, click, journeys, destinations. But the more we sustain our attention on the journey part, the more the destinations disappear. They don't disappear, they just keep it harder and harder to cling to. Buddhists talk about that all the time, don't they? Breathe in and open. Do we want to cling to this? No, we just come back and sink. Journey continues. Sensations in the shoulders, in the ribs, in the knees, in the feet. There's journeys all through the body. What if we don't breathe through the nose and the windpipe? What if we breathe with the whole body? Then reach overhead. Paint a rainbow and watch how the imagination can be a tool of awareness also. Feeling the body, feeling the mood of the body. From the beginning of a sweep all the way through to the end. Releasing the arms, clearing my throat. Lifting and spurting open like we're separating clouds. Staying with the journey. And inviting the hips to flow also. Pulling back, pushing and pulling. The hips turn. The spine turns. There's journeys happening through the nervous system, up and down the back, across the front of the chest. And then returning to the shoulders, a new gesture. It's harder to find the edge with a circle, isn't it? Okay, so that's the first section of the Shibashi moves that are just meant to relax us, start breathing deeper, opening the major joints. Then we move the center of gravity over to one side and lift an arm, and then there's a journey back. And then a lifting, and a journey back. Are we with these sensations all through the journey? Can we patiently sit in the back seat and wait for the journey to be over? Remember that? Are we there yet? What is this urgency to get to the destination? And if we turn and see the moon, it's like a whole other dimension of destinations. Drawing the moon in to our awareness. But then there's this journey. Pressing across, noticing the end of the gesture, and then beginning another one. There's nothing more healing than just accepting the journey. Can you accept this moment, this microsecond? And then cloud hands, we lift one hand and focus on it, but we don't lose track of the journey of the shadow flowing on the earth below the cloud. We switch hands and then focus on the upper hand, but keep with the journey of the shadow across. How does that palm feel? The palm that's in our focus has one sensation. The palm that's following along on the earth is subtly different. Sometimes it's hard to stop clinging to a gesture. I don't want to go to the next one. All right, this is the end of this one. I'm going to stop this time. All right, step out. Pretend we're splashing in the sea and notice the weight shifting back and resting on the leg that's in the back, and then the sturdiness and the control on the front leg, and all this weight's low, and then all this weight's out to the side and back. Again, it's hard to find the destination. It's circular, flowing like a wave. Where does the wave begin? Where does the wave end? And then opening the arms, palms up. There's a wave of a spiral form. Palms up, palms down. No destinations, just journey. Then we'll have a destination for a break. Pause, feel balance, but notice there are all sorts of subtle journeys going on now in the nervous system. The breath continues, the heart continues. And then we do these large gestures and change the rhythm. Underneath, the heart and the breath continue, but our attention is in this large journey. Riding the waves. One day I said we're swimming in chi, and someone asked me why we're swimming in cheese. I have to be very careful how I enunciate. And back to the center. Pausing again for that momentary stillness. It's not really still. The awareness can be still. Holding all this river of sensation in one moment of awareness, or a still moment of awareness. But then the intention to make a fist, the intention to sink into the knees, the intention to raise the arm, and the image of a dragon rising from the sea, or a storm coming in off the ocean onto the shore, something that stirs up the status quo, reminds us of impermanence, starts a new chapter. Opening the arms and flying with the cranes, we go up on our toes. And then turning the wheel. Lots of sensations throughout the whole body. Breathing with each cell of the body. They're all opening and releasing. Going the other direction. Now, bringing our feet under our hips, feeling the balance, sinking into the knees, shifting the weight, lifting the hand and the opposite foot. Playing with the ball. the intelligence of the body, organizing these various gestures into a flow and a rhythm. And then we pause and just breathe in, following the journey down. Each different gesture with the wrists, a whole symphony of sensations. And then stillness. May we all be healed from this flow of cheese or chi or something. Thank you. Oh, the change of the light. Do you see the different stripes now?
Are you open to doing Dharma Council instead? Sure. You've ever seen it? Good morning, Sangha. Adjusting my earpiece. If you don't know who I am, my name is Avi. I'm community coordinator here, and I'm about to conduct the very sacred and very ancient ritual of announcements. Because it amuses me to think of the Buddha announcing the potluck after the teaching. 2,600 years ago, I'm sure there were potlucks. So, there's, as always in this place, there are a lot of things that are going on. The headlines are that we are looking for a permanent teacher for our Sunday children's program. We are looking for somebody with some elementary teaching experience who has some familiarity with Buddhism. If you know of anybody who is available for 4 hours a week and who is interested in doing that as a fill-in kind of a thing, it is a paid position, please send them my way. Direct them to the website. There's an announcement there on the homepage, and they have all the information they need to contact me. Now, going along with that, there is a really critical issue around volunteerism that I need to bring to your attention, and I think we've talked about it before. We really need volunteer support for the children's program. Our Sangha member, Tia, who has a teaching background, has been volunteering the last 3 weeks while we've been going through this transition. And this is going to be her last week because she has her own personal stuff that she has to attend to, and she cannot do this anymore. And we've known this for some time, and what we'd like to do is keep the children's room open, provided that there are volunteers who can watch the kids. And I would imagine we need ideally 2 to 4 people per week so that nobody has to do more than an hour, so that nobody misses the entire Dharma gathering. We can sort of hand off and do tag team watching of the kids. And it's basically watching the kids, basically, interacting with them, guiding them in play, maybe taking them outside, conducting bathroom breaks. Real simple stuff. We don't expect any kind of structured teaching to go on. But the thing is that this is a really firm need that we have. A lot of times when I bring to you volunteer needs that we have, it's always kind of abstract. It's like, oh, we need some help with the house cleaning, we need some help with hospitality. And it's all kind of abstract because if there's a few less house cleaners, well, the place is a little dirtier, and that is sort of like the will of the community. But in this particular instance, this is a really solid need that we have because week to week we're going to be determining whether or not we can have the children's room open or not. If there are no people willing to volunteer, or if there's only one, which means that one person would be functionally denied their chance to attend the gathering for some of the time that Sunday, I don't see how in all good conscience we can have the room open for children, because that's not fair either to the kids or to the one person who's decided that they're going to do it. And it's also something where it's not just about the parents. When Robert and I have talked, Robert has expressed the belief to me that parents come here because they are managing these little people, and they need the Dharma as much as anybody. So for 2 hours, it would be great if the community could sort of shoulder that responsibility for them for a little while and allow them to get the centeredness they need to be good parents and to raise wonderful little people. So I would imagine that we're going to decide week to week whether or not the children's room is going to be open. There is a link on the website. If you go into the children's page on the website under events, there's a thing that says children's program. There's a link there. There is a link on the home page that directs you to the same place that says announcement. We need volunteers. Please sign up in advance. There are, I believe, 2 to 4 slots open every Sunday. Two slots. All right. So Robert's saying 2. It would be even better if we could have more, because if we have 8 to 10 kids, that's still a lot of kids for one person to manage. So just be aware that our ability to keep this precious resource open is really going to depend on the immediacy of support. And it's not an awful thing if some week there's no volunteers. Well, the room will be closed, and we will deal with the reality of that. But I'm just letting you know, to be real with you, that's where we are. Hopefully we will have a new teacher within the next few weeks. And then even after we have a teacher, we're going to need volunteer support, because this community is growing and thriving, and there are more children coming here. And these children, if their parents continue coming here, 20 years from now, they will look back at the time that they were in the kids' room at PIMC, and they will have warm, fuzzy feelings about that. And I think that's what we're growing towards, this idea of the next generation coming up. Wouldn't that be a cool thing, to have people come back who have been through the children's program here and say, I want to be in this place because it felt so good coming here with my parents. So that is a rather long thing. Let me just hit very, very briefly on just a few other things coming up. Robert's Remembering Death Retreat is coming up next weekend on the 9th. He has not done this teaching for 2 to 3 years. We've got the next meeting of the Engaging the Dharma initiative, our initiative to do mindful activism out in the world. That is happening next weekend on the 10th. And then Jim is doing another half-day Qigong retreat on Sunday, March 16th. What's that? Saturday, March 16th. And then finally, we have a big Sangha meeting. Big. Capital letters, big. Sangha meeting on April 7th, Sunday, April 7th, where Robert is going to share with us plans for the future of this community, and there's a number of significant changes that are going on. If anyone feels like they need a Dharma consult today in order to examine issues in your practice or to start a practice, Jim is happy to spend 20 minutes with you today. If today doesn't work out, you can contact me and I can schedule something with a teacher. We have other sits and we have spiritual friends groups. You can find out more about that on the website. And as always, I hope you all have a blessed day. Thank you for being here and sharing community with us.
Oh, thank you all for being here. It's very nourishing for me to be in this context and having the privilege of playing this role as well. I think I'll be responsible to one other piece of my role, which is to remind you that the Dana Bowl is here, and we have a new locking wood Dana basket at the back of the hall, which you can make use of either of those. And this last week was the NPR fundraising, and I listened a lot. They work so hard to make that. And there's a reason they work so hard, because it's so easy to forget. It's so easy to not act. And so I want to remind you to reflect upon how does PIMC serve you? How has it changed your life? And I've heard from many, many people over the years that when something changed in my life when I walked through the front doors for the first time, and it's been life transformative. And if that's the case for you, then I encourage you to contribute. Not for yourself so much, but to keep the place really flourishing for the next person that comes through the front door. And you can do that online and join the stewardship circle, and that's very helpful. So, well, my dreams have been very fruitful, very generous lately, and I woke up this morning early with a very, very beautiful dream. It was, I've spent a fair amount of my life in, proportionally, I guess, high in the mountains. I worked as a ski patrolman in Switzerland for a winter and got to live way high in the mountains. And lots of backpacking and mountaineering and climbing, and I went trekking in the Himalayas one time for 6 weeks. So this dream took place high in the mountains, and I was looking over to my left, and they weren't sphinxes, but there were somehow some carvings, big, maybe 60, 100 feet high, like Ajanta and Ellora. There's a Buddhist place in India where they carve these temples over several hundred years out of a valley, out of a hillside. And instead of bringing in rock and creating a Buddha statue, they removed everything else, and then they left the Buddha statue inside caves. But anyway, in this case, it was high altitude, and there was a row, 10, 15, of ancient symbolic statements about the Dharma. And then beyond them, there were 3 or 4 new ones. And it was very comforting. I woke into this state of great ease, and what came to mind quickly thereafter, very gently and quickly, was that in my life, and I'm sure it's true in your lives as well, the Dharma continues to reveal itself. And it reveals itself in familiar old themes, because there really is only one Dharma. Things really are only as they are. And so moment after moment, year after year, what's revealed is this is how reality is. And it inspired me. There was more to the dream, but that was the really the kernel of it. And it inspired me to think about, well, what should I speak on today? And for many of you, it will be a very familiar theme, in that it's one of the the very central hypotheses of the Buddhist understanding of reality. And it comes in the context of wise understanding. At the very beginning of the Eightfold Path, how we see the world is profoundly colored by our prior experiences, by our genetic endowment of sense doors, by what happened in our birth and our childhood and our education. And so we have opinions, we have predilections toward perceiving reality in particular ways. I mean, one example is, if we've been a victim of trauma, then we see the world through our trauma history. If in our first year or two we were comfortable and well contained, if our needs were adequately met, we developed basic trust. If that wasn't the case, then we developed not such basic trust. Our attachment function is somewhat injured. Speaking of that, my grandson, Landon, was born on Wednesday morning at OHSU, so my second grandson. And I've been with him a little bit since then, and it's quite something to hold a newborn. Quite something. To notice the thing that really impresses me. He's so small, but he was born at 10 pounds, 10 ounces. So he's fortunately in a way, he was a planned C-section. So, but anyway, to hold him and watch him drift, he goes into such deep sleep, just gone. And then he's all these little jerks and jumps, and then his eyes will open a little bit, and then it's as though he's waxing into consciousness. He gets more and more present, and then he'll make eye contact, and that's kind of nice. And then he'll just drift away again. Quite remarkable. So, little Landon is setting off on his journey. When Ruth Dennison did the baby blessing for my son Luke, who's the father of these, she had flower petals and she dropped them on him in some water, and she said, "Welcome to Earth, you little bundle of dukkha." And it's proved to be true. There's a lot of dukkha in a human life. But in this context of worldview, we develop attitudes and a stance toward life. And skillful or wise understanding involves trying on a worldview to see, does this fit the world? And also it's questioning one's present worldview. And there's a worldview in which most of us have been profoundly brainwashed, indoctrinated, which is the worldview of consumerism. In fact, it was until 1958 we were referred to in the newspapers as citizens. In 1958 we became consumers. That's an interesting thing, isn't it? We're thought of, how do we contribute to the gross national product? So, to keep that going, there has to be a belief that getting more stuff will make us happy. And that's true to a degree. Basic health care, basic shelter, basic food, and so on. But rather quickly we come to a point where more doesn't make us more happy. More is just more, and then we have to store it and clean it and so on. So, there's the mythology and the worldview of happily ever after. And there isn't a happily ever after, right? Because everything comes into being and goes out of being. One can be in one's gated community and have the best of clothes and the best of this and the best of that, and it keeps falling apart. And the Buddha pointed out in the wise understanding, the first thing he taught was there is suffering. There's a cause of suffering, which is wanting things to be different. And there's an end of suffering. There's the quenching of this. It's possible to reduce and quench, put out, this wanting it to be different all the time. And that's called nirvana. That's relief. And then the fourth noble truth, or ennobling truth, is the Eightfold Path, which is the way to bring this into being. So then, and this is the topic I wanted to get to today, there's three hypotheses that are at the core of the Buddha's teachings. And they go like this. The first one is anicca, and that says it's anicca, not permanent. And it's pointing to the fact that nothing is permanent. Nothing lasts. Nothing this side of there was the Big Bang, flash, and then there's been change ever since, and we're part of that change, and we come into being, and then we go out of being. So anicca. And then significantly, as a result of this instability, the second characteristic of existence is dukkha, which Ruth Denison put very colorfully many times, which is dalink. There's always a leak in the canoe. That even when things are really terrific, there's this knowing it's not stable. Or it's how can I get this again? Planning for the future. And then the third hypothesis is anatta. Means literally not soul, which is a big thing in theistic culture, where we've been postulated to have a soul. And then I know in my Catholic childhood, if I did the right things and I didn't do the wrong things, then when I died, my soul would then go and be forever at the right hand of, et cetera, et cetera. Or if I was bad, I would go to hell. And those are interesting belief systems and pretty common in the world. But the Buddha taught something quite different. So, connecting now to the beginning, that, for me, that row of sphinx-like images was a reminder for me of the constant manifestation of these three characteristics of existence. I know when I first encountered them, they were revolutionary to me. Imagine a worldview that says everything's in complete flux. That was completely in accord with my scientific training. And it didn't require me to believe something. It was, well, let's see, is that true? Is everything impermanent? And there's a certain way that this is encouraging you, if you've not signed up for next Saturday, the retreat that I'm doing on remembering death, I really encourage you to do so, because of all the things that we can do well to reflect upon, it's the fact that we're going to die. We don't like to think about that. Right? It's a taboo topic, really. But what a relief it can be to do practices in which we remember, I am going to die. And I will, if I have the opportunity, I will say goodbye to everyone and everything that I love. Right? We can do imaginations, like to imagine being, if we're so lucky to have some time, and to be in the bed in which we're going to leave this life, and to have our beloveds around. Even as I'm saying it, there's a little tearfulness that comes up. It's like, and it's really true that these people, my children, my partner, my wife, and even some of you have met my little white dog, Budo. that Buddha's 13. He's still pretty healthy, but his days are few now. And what it results in is that every day I take a little more time and I sit down and I do a practice that we do sometimes on retreats. I meet his eyes and I think to myself, I see you. I see this beautiful little creature who's been my pal since he was born on my bed. So he's come to my office thousands, literally thousands of times. And before long, he won't be jumping in the car with me. And so what this contemplation of death does, it's not morbid or somber, even though we can go through some emotions about it. It really is, if we're willing to embrace the impermanence of our life, then the joy gets bigger. And we're willing to take the risk of actually being intimate with each other. Because there's a way we hold back from being intimate because we know, it's if I dare to love you, then I'm going to lose you. And that's going to hurt like hell. But why not? Otherwise, I can go through life kind of, okay, it's okay. I can take my pleasures from sports and activities, but what about really meeting with each other? Really connecting? Right? Really taking the risk, which then includes also the conflict that arises in that, but it really is fully incarnating as a human being. So, the way the hypothesis can be put is, everything is impermanent. Is this true? And then we live our life. And if we're fortunate enough to have an insight meditation practice, and it's the word for sati, mindfulness, insight. It's one thing to know this intellectually, but when we go deep into our meditation practice and we start really noticing things like this, well, there's no breath. It's starting. It's gone. And the beginning doesn't exist when the middle happens. And then the middle doesn't exist 1/10 of a second later. Oh, look at that, I got a little tremor. Coffee. That life actually presents itself there's a colorful term, they call it tachistoscopic. It's that life exists in these little tiny, not even measurable segments. They're so tiny, but when this one is happening, the one before it is gone. It's not sort of gone. It's gone. It's gone like the dinosaurs are gone. It's gone. And so as we meditate, we develop some concentration and mindfulness, we start noticing things like that, and it becomes more and more convincing. Everything's impermanent. Is that true? Yes. Or we notice we're sitting and maybe the mind gets real quiet, and then out of nowhere comes a thought. And then it thinks itself, and then it disappears. And that thought might be one of the I, me, mine thoughts, which are most of what the thinking mind is doing is how do I survive? How do I get my needs met? And when those selfing thoughts become more and more obvious, then the third of these characteristics, that anatta, it starts becoming, the hypothesis is, there really isn't an enduring self. Is this true? And now when that starts unraveling and we start realizing, not as a concept, but as an observation, this self isn't stable either. One way that we can observe that in our meditation is when we're sitting and we're experiencing sloth and torpor, the fourth of the five hindrances. So I decide right now I am going to stay very conscious and awake and sitting up and be very crisp. And then a second later or 5 minutes later, through no volition, consciousness comes back. How does that happen? It's not something I did. I wasn't even around to do it. And then back, and then, then come back, and then... And so people often say, well, I won't meditate when I have sloth and torpor. It's the perfect time to watch yourself dying. Right? We go to sleep at night so blithely, we think, well, okay, I'm going to go to... And it's so sweet, isn't it, to disappear, like little Landon disappears. But is this on? No. So this is two of the hypotheses. Are they true? And this third one it's kind of the heart. It sticks in the craw. It's like, wait, I've worked so hard to get my act together. You mean it's going to end? It's not fair. Finally approaching what seems like at least baseline sanity, and then it disappears. Well, what one could do is to create a fantasy story about how I'm going to continue, and then rely on that. But one of the things that starts to appear clearer and clearer when you're meditating, these are thoughts. I'm creating a fantasy. And that fantasy is like a Band-Aid over the fact that I have existential anxiety about what's going to happen when I die. So what that means is I don't need to investigate any further because now I know, and oftentimes we have a book, and the book says this is how it is, so therefore I can rely on these other people before me because they know. But do I know? But experientially, we have these hypotheses. So the first is anicca. I wanted to say this, that there's a lot of ringing. One of the things that happened for me after my first retreat, and then it certainly grew over the next year or two, was I started being not obsessive, but really it kept striking me how impermanent things were. I did a 2-month meditation retreat, like 15, 16 hours a day of sitting and walking, and then I left there and I hitchhiked from California to Wyoming, and standing beside the road, car coming, excitement, hoping, beginning to lifting, wishing, disappointed. So mindful. It's like annoyed. But the truth of anicca was getting more and more obvious. It's like a car appears on the horizon, it grows, excitement grows, hope grows, and then deflation happens. And every single car did that. And they came and then they disappeared. So I would pose this question to you. Is anicca true? Core teaching, is it true? So when you're meditating, you're not only meditating to calm yourself down and to become aware of your psychological and emotional patterns so you feel better and live better. But you're also, there's a part of you that's noticing this hypothesis. Is this impermanent? In the Satipatthana Sutra, which I encourage you to read it, look it up online and go to Access to Insight and read the Satipatthana Sutra. There's a bunch of different translations of it. It talks about mindfulness of breathing, and then mindfulness of feelings, and then mindfulness in daily life. At the end of each expansion of the practice, there's something called the refrain. And for the longest time, for decades, I thought, how boring. They repeat this stupid refrain after everyone. And then a few years ago, I read a book by Bhikkhu Analayo on mindfulness. And he said, it's repeated because it's the absolute core teaching. It's what makes this insight meditation, because there's the instruction, here's how to practice mindfulness of breathing. But then the refrain says, and in this experience of the breathing, noticing the origination factors and the dissolution factors, notice that it begins and ends. That's important, because that's challenging us to change our worldview radically. So there's anicca and anatta, impersonality of the self. Let me say one more thing with that. Sometimes people practice come across that, and then they say, oh, I don't have a self, therefore it doesn't matter what I do. Or we take it into some psychopathology, and then he was right. I don't have a self. I really am hopeless. More useful is to use that teaching as a strategy, that when you're all caught up and entangled in some web of some emotion or something, to be able to pause and notice, oh, this is happening. For instance, depression, which I worked a lot with in my life. Am I depressed, or is there depression? And if there's depression, what are its symptoms? Heavy head, unable to think, no motivation. Oh, that's what's happening in depression. There's this affective or mood sense. Oh, that's what that is. But am I that? Or is it symptoms? Huge change. And then the second hypothesis is dukkha. And dukkha, the term dukkha arises, the literal translation is something like an axle with a wheel and some grit in it, or a wheel that is off balance somehow, so there's the thunkety, thunkety, thunk. And that was the first thing the Buddha said. There's dukkha in life. There's grit. Have you noticed? I mean, there's so much grit. There's so much dissatisfaction over small things. So there's this worldview, which is, I just had a Coca-Cola and I am satisfied. I'm beyond satisfied. I am ecstatic. Wow. And I had it in my new car, and I'm in a new relationship, but that isn't really how life is it? My sense of taste is fading. Age wears out somehow. It's still there, so I'm still motivated to eat. And many people, as they age, lose taste and scent, both. Most of what we call taste is actually scent. They lose that, and then they lose weight. Because why eat this thing? It may crunch or something, but there's no aroma, there's no... So I I'm discovering that I'm using more hot sauce, and it's like I want some flavor in this thing. But have you know another thing? Do you toil over what to get at a restaurant? Because you want to get the right thing, right? And maybe since I'm with someone else, we can both get something different, and then I can taste some of yours, because that'll make a difference. And then you finish the meal, and your hunger may be gone, but there's a sense of, well, maybe I'll have a dessert, or maybe I'll, that's dukkha. The difficulty to sit down at a restaurant and toil over what to have off the menu is suffering. I mean, it's high-level suffering. But if you pay attention to it, it's, what if I get the wrong thing? I mean, I'll miss my chance in this, which could be my last meal. I have to have the right thing. So, there really is, hypothesis, there really is a lot of disappointment and a sense of, that wasn't okay. Is this true? And it's not because you're doing something wrong, or you went in the wrong restaurant, or you have the wrong parents, or we have the wrong government in place, or we have, it's not because of that, it's because that's the Dharma. That we're looking for completion and satisfaction in places that it doesn't exist. Right? The 6,000 square foot house with 2 hot tubs, and it doesn't lead to completion. The new partner, or the new baby, or it leads to more dukkha. And the more determined we are to be satisfied, the more we suffer. So, that's a downer, isn't it? On the other hand, what a relief to realize, well, that was good, but it's a little disappointing. We spent all this money to come on this vacation, and now I have a headache, or now we finally get on vacation in the couple, and we have some time together, and then one or the other says, oh, there's this thing I've been meaning to talk with you about. So we're in Maui, for God's sake. And then that sets off. So hypotheses, worldview. Nothing's going to last. Nothing does last. Is that true? There's always a leak in the canoe. Is that true? And no matter how thoroughly I look, or perhaps it's the other way, no matter how thoroughly I look, I cannot find a stable self. The moods in this thing change all the time. One thing I notice is that some days I can achieve so much. I get on my computer, or I make phone calls. I can do a lot. I mean, this is highly trained performance person. And other days, I can hardly do anything. And I like to, well, it's because I slept poorly last night, or because of but it's totally unpredictable. The self is really unpredictable. Oh, and then I'm having not personal experience, but with friends, old friends, who are significantly older than me, with dementia, and watching this person who could flourish. The self is impermanent, subject to dukkha. The bright side of this, and there is a bright side, which is the more my worldview comes into accord with reality, then the less I suffer. Right? Because I'm not fighting reality, and it's so pointless to fight reality. So I want to read you this poem. I had it. Where'd it go? Here we go. Okay. It's called The Dakini Speaks, and it's by Jennifer Wellwood. Some of you may know John Wellwood, who wrote wonderful books on conscious relationship. If you're in a relationship, I highly recommend them, John Wellwood. So here it is. This is I'm about to take a bucket of cold water and wake us all up. Ready? Braced. Put up your umbrellas. My friends, let's grow up. Let's stop pretending we don't know the deal here, or if we truly haven't noticed, let's wake up and notice. Look, everything that can be lost will be lost. It's simple. How could we have missed it for so long? Let's grieve our losses fully like ripe human beings, but please, let's not be so shocked by them. Let's not act so betrayed, as though life had broken her secret promise to us. Impermanence is life's only promise to us. That's potent, isn't it? Impermanence is life's only promise to us, and she keeps it with ruthless impeccability. To a child, she seems cruel, but she is only wild. And her compassion is exquisitely precise, brilliantly penetrating, luminous with truth. She strips away the unreal to show us the real. This is the true ride. Let's give ourselves to it. Let's stop making deals for a safe passage. There isn't one anyway, and the cost is too high. We are not children anymore. The true human adult gives everything for what cannot be lost. Let's dance the wild dance of no hope. Let's stop making deals for a safe package. There isn't one anyway. Passage. Let's stop making deals for a safe passage. There isn't one anyway, and the cost is too high. We are not children anymore. The true human adult gives everything for what cannot be lost. Let us dance the wild dance of no hope. Which doesn't say let's be hopeless. It's let us not be either hopeful or hopeless, but let us be. Let's be here and watch this mysterious unfolding, unpredictable. So, one last time through, the hypothesis. Everything is impermanent. Everything is impermanent. Is this true? There really is dukkha all the time. Except that's not true. Sometimes the craving for something to be different goes away, and then there's life. But there is plenty of dukkha. Is this true? And then the self is a process which is actually part of the whole. And that's the really exquisite news, which is what if, let's just do it. It could be Nike for a moment. Let's just do it. What if what we, you, I, we really are is the infinite loving awareness of the universe? And in that infinite loving awareness, there is a body. It's alive. And this awareness can notice it. And there's a personality, and this awareness can notice that. And then this personality can engage in relationship and do things, and it's absolutely free. And there's just tremendous ease because everything's just happening. That's kind of nice, isn't it? Even a hint of that. The Buddha said that the taste of his teachings in the beginning is the taste of freedom. The taste of the teachings in the middle is the taste of freedom. The taste at the end is the taste of freedom. So it doesn't mean we don't get to experience this personality with its complexities and beauty and difficulties. That's still here. But what are we really? And that's the connection with mindfulness, that every time we open to a moment of mindfulness, we're stepping back into that huge field. Like that batik over there. I love that batik. About that in India in 1971. That who we really are is those eyes. We are that which is awake. So, any comment, question? Please, I'm coming your way. You take the high road and I'll take the low. Great. Hold it close.
Thank you. Being new to Buddhism, I'm struggling a lot with what you're saying, and my belief system is that of most people, that we have a soul, and when we die, the soul goes back to heaven, and some people believe we're reincarnated. Some people don't believe that. My question is, if there's no soul, and the universal awareness, what can you explain what the difference is between those two?
Well, it's time to go. No. However, it is for me, it has grown to be for me very comforting to realize that I don't know. And that the beliefs that I had as a child about heaven and hell and so on, that those beliefs are beliefs. They exist in thinking. And there's something much bigger than belief, which is simply being present. And so when those beliefs come up, oh, there's the belief, thank you for sharing. But there's nothing solid about them. So I don't have to say that doesn't exist, but I can say that in my direct experience, I've not found anything that persists. And there's a relief in not needing something to have as a belief.
Can I ask one more question?
Of course.
So with the conscious awareness, does that exist? Does that continue?
Does that continue? Not as me,
Right.
but I think that the consciousness of the universe persists. We could call that God if we want, but
Okay.
it doesn't have I don't think, quote, God has a special spot for me and that I'm going to be saved and that my team will win, that kind of thing.
Okay. So I guess I'm stuck on that, that the conscious awareness is, I believe in everything, as we've talked about, and I believe the soul is in everything. So maybe I'm just getting stuck on the words.
We usually do.
Yeah, okay.
that any help?
Kind of, sort of.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, way in the back. How's your catch? Oh, thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael. Thanks for your talk today. Inspired stuff for me. A while back, I was thinking about, I wasn't even thinking about it, I was just kind of experiencing it again, the dramatic, like, emotional upheavals and depressions and of various points in my life. And then I saw this movie, The Revenant, which is about a guy in the West, a hunter-trapper. All this horrible stuff happens to him. He gets attacked by a grizzly. It goes on and on and on. And then he drags himself back to the fort, and they're going to go out and look for somebody, and they want him to stay there because he's all messed up. And he just says, I ain't afraid to die. I've done that already. And I loved that so much. I was like, all that stuff, all that trauma and depression and misery, and I just like, that was as much death as I want to feel. And that's what it felt like to me in this moment, reflecting back on it. It was pretty, it was a nice relief.
What was the movie?
The Revenant.
Oh, right, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, a few years ago.
Well, in a way, the more mindful we are and the more fully we live life, when those places, when we are attacked by a grizzly, come along, and that could be a divorce or a financial crash or sickness of some kind, we do live through consciously extraordinary suffering. And we notice that it arises and passes away. And there is some wisdom that comes from that it's, that's how it is. And one then may fear death more and more, especially if we reflect on it, because it's just one more thing that's coming down the pipe, moment by. And we survived that, sort of. We grew from that. So thank you, Michael. All right, let's bring in the kids. Please make a big circle. And also coffee, tea, and great company awaits you through the doors. And please remember April the 7th, the community meeting. Come on in here, kiddos. I'm going to sit here if I can. You can have this one. Oh, could we bring the microphone up? Oh, great. Thank you, Michael. Here, have a hug. Enjoy the Grizzlies, huh?
Oh, yeah.
That mention of the Grizzlies reminded me of a news story that some fellow in Fort Collins, Colorado, was out running and was attacked by a juvenile mountain lion, and he killed it. Jeez, how weird is that? And that place, I've walked in that place. So my son lived there for a while. It was kind of like, walking in Laurelhurst Park and meeting a lion. You never know. So here you are again. Hi.
Hi.
Can I hold your hand? Thank you. May I hold your hand? Thank you. How'd your hands get so cold? Were you outside?
Yeah.
Yes. My goodness. Your hands are. You were outside too?
Yeah, but
I see. Good. So, hello to those of you joining us out there in the internet. I'm appreciative of your presence. So please give a feel of the hand on your right. Notice that their hand affects your hand. There's pressure, contact, warmth, cool. And we can do so much with these minds. Why not think a kind thought for the person to your right? Not only is it perhaps good for them, it's good for you. May this person be deeply happy, content. Now the person on your left, and give that hand a little squeeze. What would you wish for this person? And now around our circle, hand to hand and heart to heart. And realizing that our hands are the hands of everyone on the planet, 6-7 billion of us. Let us wish everyone well, all human beings. And let's include our friends and relatives who fly in the air and who climb in the trees and burrow in the soil and walk on the surface. May all beings everywhere benefit from the merits of our practice. And so one reminder, in a few moments we'll be leaving this room. Why not take, if you go out the front door, your hands on the crash bar as a reminder to be awake as you leave and go to your car, go to your bus or your bike. So are we ready to sing? Do we have a... We do. Yay! Hang on. Okay, maybe you could all do it. Hey. Oops. Are you ready? Can I hold your hand still? Okay. You have to point it toward you. No, like this, more. Yeah, it doesn't hear you otherwise for some reason.
I forgot the song.
May all beings be happy. Will help. 1, 2, 3. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you. May it be so. Sadhu means, it's kind of like the Buddhist amen. May all beings receive all blessings, is the chant. So, are we ready to make a wish and blow out the candle? Yeah? Okay. So not yet. Oh, we have to do the count. Everyone in the room gets to what's your wish? What wish would you hold for all beings and yourself today? So, take a deep breath. Everybody at home too. 1, 2, 3, blow. Yes! We did it. The wishes are all granted. Thanks. Do come and join us for some goodies and tea and so on, and see you soon. Take a moment to introduce yourself to the person to your left and right, please.